Hello everyone, it's Leon here from Games Radar, and I am joined by Matthew Castle, who's editor of Official Xbox Magazine.
Hello.
And you have been playing Far Cry Primal.
Yes.
We've got lots to go through, so we're going to look at the animals, the world, the enemies, and what you actually do in the game, but we're going to start off with the weapons, because obviously this is prehistoric.
Yes, that's right, yeah. So I think they said it's set about 12,000 years ago, so there's no guns. You're largely based on a bow and arrow. Mm-hmm. You have a spear and a club, so you're talking about quite kind of makeshift stuff you've sort of built yourself. As a result, there's it kind of pulls combat quite a lot closer to you in terms of it's not like long range stuff, but it's very kind of meaty. It's all about kind of like sort of really brutal impact on things.
Yeah.
So like the bow and arrow kind of behaves much as you'd expect. But like the spears are like properly horrible because they sort of thud into people and kind of not pin them to the ground, but kind of send them kind of flying back. Yeah, like you see a guy running towards you and you spear him, like it properly sort of drives into them. It looks horrible.
It does. It sounds interesting because it's a completely different. Most games with combat, you know what's coming. You know, it's machine gun, pistol, shotgun, sniper rifle. This sounds a bit weird. Is there any kind of interaction? Like, can you parry? Can you have like a 1-to-1, or is you just club them?
No, it's quite. It's very much just sort of swing for them. Like for example, I didn't sense the kind of level of kind of interaction you have maybe with like Dead Island, where you could swing and you had full control over it, and it's very much like whack them with the club. But then I guess that's kind of caveman style, right?
Yeah, that suits the era.
Yeah, there's a little bit more depth in terms of how fire plays into it, because obviously, at the time, fire's quite a big deal.
And it used to be a big Far Cry thing, was it? Far Cry 2, you're forever running away from fire.
Yeah, so
they have
that amazing fire tech and the way it spreads. And here, one of the big options you have is pretty much any weapon can be set on fire. Either with fire in the world, or you can sort of set it on fire within your weapon wheel.
Like a lighter somewhere.
Yeah, well, who knows? It's probably an unlock. They didn't really explain how you magically ignite this stuff, but that obviously you can kind of set kind of great big chunks of the forest ablaze, and it's going to have a bit more of an impact because people are there quite close. You're surrounded by this stuff. Situations can get out of hand. You can set a woolly mammoth on fire.
That sounds painful.
Yeah.
Which brings on actually to animals, because obviously that's the other big part of this game. Is there's woolly mammoths, there's like saber-toothed tigers. I've seen wolves and like something else as well. But basically,
there's some like hyena creatures, there's sort of panthers.
So these are enemies, but also allies.
Yeah. So the Far Cry 4 had quite a big element of throwing bait into camps and then sending the animals in to attack.
So much fun.
Yeah, exactly. So what they've done is they've built on that way, and now you can tame animals, or the carnivores anyway. You can't like get a sort of herbivore on your side.
Yeah.
But you basically throw down the bait like you would in Far Cry 4. They run up to it, and then you run up, and you can kind of sort of pat them on the head, and they just become your friend. And at that point, they basically dog meat from Fallout 4 in that you kind of point, like when you press the left trigger to aim, you literally start pointing your finger around the world and go over there.
Brilliant.
So you can sort of send them out to sort of scout stuff.
Is this one at a time?
One at a time. You only ever have one animal. When you get a new animal, like your current animal runs away, but they're always there, and you've got like a menu of mates, so you can basically call them up, and then one animal will run off, and the other one will come back. But like they can die, and then you'd have to heal them within that kind of animal menu as well.
So you can manage almost like a little small zoo of people.
Yeah. I think there was something like 16 animals, different species that you could kind of recruit. Obviously there are rare ones which had like amazing stats, which are going to be quite difficult to find. And we started off with just like a wolf and a bear, I think we had, but I soon had like this sort of mountain lion thing, which was pretty great.
And there's the owl, which I think you described as basically your binoculars.
Yeah, so that's the other big thing, is you have this owl that you can send out. You obviously don't have the tactical binoculars, which are a key part of Far Cry, but the owl, you're fully controlling him, flying over the world. You can mark targets like you could with the binoculars. It's even got the same sound effect, which is quite funny.
Weird.
That sort of electronic bleep. But the owl can also be upgraded to do things like dive bomb attacks, so you can sort of start combat that way. It can also drop like bee nests, wasps' nests on people's heads and things.
They're really pushing the sort of what you can do in a prehistoric world, aren't they?
Yeah, it was one of the things I was surprised by, with sort of like how kind of daft and sort of fantastical it is, because I thought it was going to be really serious, sort of caveman sim, but actually it's still got that Far Cry kind of silliness, which I quite like.
Okay, so the world itself, so it's prehistoric, it's kind of 10,000 years BC, that sort of thing. They're doing something weird with the language, aren't they?
Yeah, so it's all in. I know. I must admit, I don't actually know what the word would be, what the name of the language is, but it's all in a kind of a native tongue.
Yeah.
There's actually very little dialogue in it, because it's
How are objectives communicating? communicated to? Someone come up and grunt and point?
It's weird. It's sort of mainly done through like on-screen text and menus and things, rather than kind of. I didn't meet any kind of key story characters.
Yep.
Like it was mostly side quests, which you just sort of turned up, and it was like, an interface came up and said, "Go here,
go and do this thing." Okay.
There's no radio station blathering away in the background.
Yep.
It's very kind of like. Quiet, kind of lot of atmospheric sound, like you can just sort of drink in the kind of environment, a lot of wind through trees, all that kind of stuff. So it feels a bit more like relaxed than kind of Far Cry 4, which was constantly barking in your face.
And obviously, I guess like changing the technology aspect of it is going to have a lot of effect on the atmosphere and that sort of thing, but also the enemies. So who are the bad guys here? I mean, there's not a pagan min. There's not going to be a Vass.
No. As far as we could tell, like it's just sort of like rival tribes.
Yeah.
Your tribesmen you see around, like often they're there in the environment, like hunting animals, doing their own kind of like organic activities. And then occasionally you'll meet other people and you'll have big fights with them. They're kind of in like red war paint.
Yeah.
And the big thing of our demo was focused around kind of claiming back camps, which now their big thing, instead of outposts, they have bonfires. Okay. So you're trying to light this bonfire, like this beacon, and the kind of camp come, kill all the other tribesmen in there. And that seems to populate the area.
So you're expanding your territory kind of thing?
Yeah, and there seems to be some kind of like base camp building. Like there's references in the game to kind of like, now you can build a medic hut or something, but we didn't see any of that in action. But there's a hint that there is probably a central camp somewhere which you are developing.
Well, this brings me on then to my last question is what you actually do, and you've covered it, but in the sort of the hour, what was the kind of the gameplay loop, if you like? What were you actually kind of doing?
It's really the Far Cry, like very very Far Cry, right down to like the icons on the map are the same as they were before. So we were mainly doing side activities, so taking back these camps, these bonfires. There are caves to explore where you're trying to find like a cave painting on the wall and other sort of mystical sort of doodads. There are little fires to light, which are like little like resting camps, and it's suggested that warmth will play a bigger part in like colder climates. Like there will be a
cold endurance.
Mechanic. Yeah, exactly. We were mainly in a forest and some sort of dry woodlands, so there was less of a kind of pressure there. But yeah, it suggested that kind of search for kind of sanctuary is going to be a big part of it. In terms of like general story, like it's really hard to say. I mean, you play a guy called Takar, and he is a tribesman. He's not like a guy thrust into a crazy situation. He is an experienced warrior from the off.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly. So it's slightly different. I mean, what his ultimate aim is, or whether there's going to be like a really charismatic caveman, like pagan-esque caveman you have to take down, I don't know.
Beautiful caveman with perfectly sort of spiked hair.
Yeah, exactly. It's that's sort of, I would be surprised if there wasn't something like that. Because there's so much of Far Cry in it that would be an odd thing for it to be missing.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it's very kind of like climbing collectibles, big crafting element, hunting the animals is obviously a key part of it. And we started with quite a leveled up character, so a lot of the kind of early busy work has been done for us.
Okay, so that's a quick look at Far Cry Primal. There'll be more on the site and more in the official Xbox magazine, which will be out
on the 12th of January.
Cool. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch up with you guys later.